and hopefully it'll hold out. So we'll see.
Nice touch with using the Indiana Jones font, by the way.
Oh yeah, I had that. I had that on the ready.
Yeah.
All right, let me let everybody know we're here. Good evening, YouTube land. See, and it went down again. It went down to 87%.
That doesn't make any sense.
I don't know why it's doing that. Why are you doing that? It makes no sense whatsoever.
Maybe maybe the mixer has a life of its own and it's heard our Final Fantasy rants and it's a huge fan.
Well,
So it'll work for open micers, but not for this show.
If I can't figure it out in the next couple of days, I might just get that new mixer anyway. Because I don't know what else it could be. I mean, Loopback worked fine with my old microphone, but when it works with this mixer, it's just not doing what it's supposed to do.
Well, I know old mixers can be pretty tricky with like computer setups.
Yeah, and I'm running.
So I mean,
I checked.
It could be that.
I checked for an update on Loopback to see if there was an update, but no updates. I'm running the current version.
That's weird.
So we'll see. I don't know, but I guess we can go.
We'll see what happens.
See what happens.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1. Back for another episode of the Nerd Cave Retro Show. My name is Jason Robbins.
And my name is Derek Diamond.
So how has your week been?
Pretty good, actually. I know we had a really good Patreon podcast that we recorded yesterday, which was one of my favorite episodes we've done in a long time. Patreon or standard show. So if you're a patron and you haven't checked it out yet, we talk about basically pitching video games that we would adapt into a TV series.
That was
such
the two of us
and Wally
episode to do. It was so fun.
Yeah, I was still feeling the high from it after it was over. I'm like, man, that was a really good podcast. Other stuff. Well, I've been mostly playing the game I'm going to be reviewing tonight. Got back into some Pokemon thanks to the Delta app on iOS. So. Been playing a little Pokemon, some Donkey Kong 94, and other than that, I did watch the Knuckles series, which I know we have a news story about that. So I'll give
ask you about it. I haven't gotten a chance to watch it yet. So what's your?
So basically, I'll save the majority of my thoughts because I know we've got a news story about it. I will say this, and I meant to text you. I don't know if they meant to do this or not, but there are two really cool nods to the movie The Wizard.
Oh, yeah? Mm-hmm. What would that be?
So there's a scene where there's karaoke, and it is one of the villain characters sings Send Me an Angel, which is featured in the Wizard movie.
Yeah.
And as that is playing, Knuckles and Wade drive on a motorcycle to Reno, which is where the kids went in The Wizard. And I'm like, I don't know if that was meant to happen, but I was like that gif of Steve Carell from The Office where he does that really overly happy smile where I'm like,
yeah, I'm pretty sure that was intentional. That had to be intentional.
It was so cool.
Yeah.
I loved it.
I want to apologize to everybody. Still working out the kinks with this new audio setup I got. So if you hear me go out tonight, for some reason, I think I have a software issue somewhere with Loopback that just doesn't like my my new microphone. And I don't know what to do about it. So we're just going to keep experimenting. And I apologize if I just all of a sudden my audio just goes out. So Derek, just take over for me when you hear me when you hear me disappear.
See, I think your new mixer is a diehard Final Fantasy fan, and it got wind of some of our early episodes of us making fun of the numbering system, so it's just trolling you in its own little way.
It's a diehard Final Fantasy fan, and it loves open micers because I went the whole episode of open micers without a hitch. As soon as we do Nerd Cave Retro stuff, it's like I'll be talking and then nothing.
It's a huge Jacob Craig fan.
See, it just did it as soon as you said Jacob Craig. It went
okay,
out.
So we'll I'll retract that statement. But what about you?
I started playing Jedi Survivor that just dropped on Game Pass this weekend. I was playing Fallout New Vegas, but as soon as I saw Jedi Survivor drop, I'm like, yeah, it's going to have to go to the back burner. So I'm going to be playing some Jedi Survivor over the next couple of weeks.
I still need to play that game. I've heard nothing but good things about it. Like Fallen Order was great. So I can only imagine that, Survivor's good too.
It's pretty good so far. I'm probably about 5 hours into it right now. And I'm
nice.
It's just as good as the first game. So if you played the first one, you're going to love the second one.
Fantastic.
But we got some news to get to this evening. You ready to jump into the news?
Sure.
If I can find it, here we go. Some of tonight's stories were sent to us by Mr. Armez Jackson. So if you have a news story you'd like us to cover, send the Nerd Cave Retro at gmail.com. The first story comes from NintendoLife.com. The Switch dock prototype moves arcade racers up a gear. The Switch is no stranger to an arcade racer or two. While it's all well and good playing these with a standard Joy-Con or Pro Controller setup, the latest dock prototype from Far East Pinball has left the people at Nintendo Life firmly in the belief that the likes of Outrun should be played no other way. It does away with regular button inputs and swaps in a miniature steering wheel and shift lever instead. There's a demonstration video on Far East Pinball on Twitter. It's kind of cool because it looks like those old plastic racers you used to get. Maybe you didn't have these, but I definitely had some of these like back in the early 80s, maybe late 70s, early 80s when I was a little kid. It's just those little plastic, steering wheels with the little screen on it. That's exactly what this looks like.
Yeah, it looks really cool. And I mentioned these on, I think it was last week's show, or it might have been the week before. But those adapters you would get to, or I guess extensions that you could get for PC games, like the steering wheel for a racing game or a joystick for, a flight simulator. That's what this reminds me of. But it's really cool, and I like the screen that's on the right side of it, because it's almost like you're looking at, like a lot of modern cars have that center console that has a screen with your navigation and your menu options and everything. That's what it reminds me of.
Yeah, I think you just slide the Switch in there because as far as I can tell, I think this is just a 3D printed prototype for it. But honestly, I mean, this looks kind of cool enough. If it's not expensive, I would love to have one of these.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I'm always a sucker for stuff like this. It makes the game experience that much more authentic.
And it just looks like something you'd get back in the 80s, something that you play on your, like a little peripheral you'd get for the Nintendo or something, to play Rad Racer or something with. Yeah,
absolutely. Our next story, also from NintendoLife.com, Knuckles series physical pre-orders appear online. Paramount's new Knuckles series launched this week, and although the 6-part adventure is just getting underway, it seems a physical release has already been confirmed. As highlighted by multiple sources, pre-order listings for a Steelbook Blu-ray and DVD have surfaced on sites like Amazon and Walmart in the US. There's no exact release date just yet, but the price is $31.99, which is absolutely worth it. I mean, that's not much more expensive than a standard movie, I feel like.
Yeah.
And granted, the series is only 6 episodes, so that's part of the reason I think why it's not as expensive as it could be. But I will definitely be picking this up.
I mean, Blu-ray steel books usually run about this much, about $30, and this is actually not a bad deal. 6 episodes for the whole series, and you get the steel book and probably some cool stuff that comes with it. For $32 is not bad at all.
I hope it's included with some cool like behind the scenes features. Like you get on most DVD sets, but I would love to see just the making of it. I saw a little bit of it, with Sonic 1 and 2, where they have the physical stand-ins for like Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, and seeing how the actors interact with them and kind of see, the progression from those physical models to the final characters.
I want to watch it. I'm going to watch this week.
So I won't get into spoilers, but I loved the series. And I know I'm a huge Sonic fan, so I'm going to be a little biased, but it follows a lot of the same beats as the first Sonic movie. Mm-hmm. The relationship between Knuckles and Wade reminds me a lot of that building between Sonic and Tom Wachowski.
Yeah.
I've seen a little bit of criticism online saying that it's too similar. I personally don't think so. You get to learn a lot about Wade's backstory, and you get more of Knuckles' backstory as well. It's a very self-contained storyline. So if you're looking for some kind of like huge cliffhanger, that doesn't happen. But it's a really fun show.
Yeah, I figured they'll and make it a self-contained story because something like this, like you never know if you're going to get a second season. So at least make one nice, tight, concise 6-episode miniseries.
I think we will get another series, but I don't know if it'll be a season 2 of Knuckles. But I have no doubt that we're going to get either a Shadow spin-off movie or a series that goes into his origins. I have zero doubt that's going to happen. But if you haven't, definitely go check out the Knuckles series. It's really, really good.
This is from TheVerge.com. The Delta emulator will soon turn your iPad into a giant Nintendo DS. The Delta emulator made a huge splash when it hit the Apple App Store earlier this month. Now developer Riley Testut, I guess that's how you say his name, says an iPad-specific version is near completion and will be released with Delta version 1.6. Says the app is already available for his Patreon supporters through the regular Alt Store. And he says the iOS version already works on the iPad, but a native version would let it take advantage of the full iPad screen real estate for better skins, including one that turns your tablet into more of a gigantic Nintendo DS Lite. It also apparently will support iPad split view.
Ooh, that's nice.
He says after releasing the iPad OS native version of Delta, he says he will turn to bringing device-to-device multiplayer to the app. Multiplayer already works in Delta, but on a single device, which is nice for playing on a TV using AirPlay. But being able to play with other people on their own devices, that's going to be quite a nice thing.
I imagine that a lot of furniture has been broken at Nintendo headquarters because of this app. I said at the beginning, I'm a big fan of the app. If you get past the learning curve, I guess that's the appropriate way to say it, of not having buttons, it's really fun. I think it's perfect for Game Boy games. Super Nintendo games, I've tried to play them landscape mode, but it's actually easier to play it like as if you're holding a Game Boy.
Yeah.
Which I find to be kind of interesting. But I think if you're a retro gaming fan, like I have friends that grew up, they're around my age. They played games like Donkey Kong Country and Super Mario World. they're getting this app and getting back into retro games. So I think this is actually doing some good.
I didn't even see this, but he also says that Sega Genesis emulation is coming soon as well. It's currently in beta.
I can't wait to play some Sonic 2 on my iPhone.
That's
cool. Going to be great. But definitely check out the app. I'd be very curious to get your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and download it. I can hear Nintendo screaming from here, like yelling for their lawyers to do something.
Oh, I have no doubt that some plants have been thrown. Maybe a couch or two's been broken.
I mean, what do they care? It's not. I mean, these are old ROMs.
They're not doing anything themselves, so it's their own fault.
Do it yourself if you want to control it.
Yeah, I mean, I love Nintendo, but I have no sympathy for them in this situation.
None.
They've done it to themselves, and it's like that saying, when you make your bed, you got to lay in it.
That's all I've heard over the last week listening to different gaming podcasts is like, why does Nintendo continue to just leave money on the table when it comes to this stuff? They want to litigate. They want to take everybody to court. They want to sue everybody instead of just freaking doing it themselves. Like, we will pay for it. What are you doing?
At the end of the day, the purpose of a business is to make money. Nintendo, for some reason, that doesn't seem to be their top priority.
I mean, do they just have enough? Like, they just not want to make anymore?
Well, send some of it our way.
Yeah.
And then you can replenish it by creating an app for people to download and pay like $1 a game.
And Rampage in the chat room said he's been using his Xbox controller with it, and it works great.
I didn't even think about that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, anything Bluetooth will work with it.
Okay. Have to try that out. And then finally from GamesRadar.com, Nintendo finally recognizes the most hardcore retro gaming sickos with Switch's latest N64 games, which you've probably never heard of. Now, I have not read this story, so I can already tell this is going to make me really happy. Hearken to this, my fellow retro gaming sickos. Nintendo is finally catering to our very unusual taste with the latest updates to the Nintendo Switch Online retro game library. This time, we've gotten a pair of N64 games that I'd wager you've either never heard of or entirely forgotten up until this moment. Extreme G and Iggy's Wrecking Balls both hit the N64 library in the premium expansion pack tier of NSO earlier this week.
I'm sorry,
they're both
I'm
12
years old, and that just makes me laugh every time I see
that. I just want to review Iggy's Wrecking Balls and just insert the title as much as I possibly can.
I've never heard of either of these games.
No, I haven't either. They're both racing games, but while Extreme G is a fairly straightforward sci-fi racer, Iggy's Wrecking Balls is a bizarre grappling hook-based racer with ball-like characters, you don't say, and tracks mostly made up of big towers to climb.
Oh, yeah? That's what she said.
Hey-o!
Hey-o! Yeah,
so here's
of all the stuff that they could put on the Nintendo Switch Online for the N64, why two games that nobody has ever heard of?
I mean, it's still not on the level of Side Pocket.
Yeah, that's true, but still, I mean, there's so many other games out there that need to be on these services that just aren't there.
You won't put Donkey Kong 64, Banjo-Tooie, any of the rare N64 games that were great, but you'll throw on Iggy's Wrecking Balls. I'm going to review that just to be spiteful.
You should.
Maybe I'll do that after Paper Mario.
All right. We'll see.
I'll review Iggy's Wrecking Balls. So if you're interested, you can go check out the Nintendo Switch Online store with the wonderful edition of Extreme G and Iggy's Wrecking Balls.
Well, Rampage says Extreme G was fun, so we got one endorsement.
Okay. Well, I'll take Rampage's word for it.
But now it is time for This Month in Video Game History. April 23rd of 1985, Broderbund releases Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego for the PC?
Yeah, something similar that for what I'm going to be reviewing in just a little bit. Do you remember the Carmen Sandiego game show?
I do, but the thing is, I was never really into the whole Carmen Sandiego thing. It just wasn't, I don't know, I just never got into it.
So when I did my top 10 cartoon theme song list over on the Derek Diamond Experience, I went down a rabbit hole of like best cartoon theme songs, and this kept coming up because there was a Carmen Sandiego cartoon in addition to the game show, and I hated that song. But it was on a lot of best of lists. It sounded like an opera singing about Carmen Sandiego. And it hurt my ears to listen to it.
And the cartoon was in the 90s, right?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know Carmen
I mostly
Sandiego,
remember the game show because it was on like PBS.
Because I don't remember it going this far back to like 1985. I thought Carmen Sandiego was strictly like a late 80s, 90s thing.
I was thinking maybe like 89 or like 90, maybe 91.
Because it seems like
because I can still remember watching the game show.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I never played the PC game. I'm not surprised that there was one because it's well suited for like an educational type game because it deals with treasures and artifacts and things like that. I just didn't know that it predated me.
It's definitely something I think they did use in schools to teach like geography and things like that. So seems like that's perfectly fit for it.
Yeah. In April of 1990, Williams releases Smash TV in arcades, a twin-stick shooter about an ultra-violent game show. I have heard of Smash TV. I've never played it, but it's a game that continuously comes up whenever I look up these video game history topics.
I really do want to do a review of it. I know there was one I think there was one for the NES. I'm pretty sure, I'm positive there was one for the Super Nintendo, but I don't think I ever played this game. I have played the arcade version, but I never played the home versions. I've heard they're not great. Because I do remember the one for the Nintendo, you actually... Yeah, there
his mic went out again.
Yeah, it actually, you had to use both of the controllers and use both of the D-pads as almost like a dual stick shooter type of thing.
That's different.
Yeah.
That is, but so there was a version there was the arcade, there was the Genesis and Game Gear, NES, Super Nintendo, and this is strange, Commodore 64.
I'm sure that was a great version.
Best-selling Commodore 64 version of Smash TV.
Yeah. Let's see. April 10th of 2001, Working Designs release Sylpheed. I still have trouble saying this name. Sylpheed: The Lost Planet for the PS2 in North America. The
cover art looks like it's straight out of the early 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Like an 80s sci-fi movie.
There's a lot of love for these Sylpheed games in the community. I've never played them.
I haven't either. I remember seeing them around, especially, around this time, the early 2000s. But I just never got into them.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody that's ever played them either.
I mean, our community has, and they tell us how great they are.
Yeah.
But I've never played them. I didn't even know these were a thing till like a couple months ago.
Now, that's one good thing about doing this show.
Yep. All the things we missed.
The more you know.
I need to get that.
And last but not least, Daryl. April 8th of 2003, THQ releases Crazy Taxi Catch a Ride for the Game Boy Advance in North America. I completely forgot that there was a Game Boy Advance version of Crazy Taxi.
I had no idea there even was one.
Oh, Rampage says Sylpheed was on Sega CD also.
Ooh.
I didn't see that listed.
I didn't. Let me see here.
Well,
this is the sequel, right? Yeah, it's a direct sequel to the first one.
Okay. That's still interesting, though.
Yeah.
But, yeah, Crazy Taxi's fun. I'll have to see if I can maybe find a copy of this at... So the retro gaming store that's near my house, they recently completed an expansion of their store, because like the store that was next door to them closed down. So they were able to expand basically into two businesses, which was really cool. So I'll have to see if they have a copy of this, because I'd be interested to play it.
I was in the local game exchange over the weekend, and I noticed I was taking a look. There it goes again. I was looking at the Nintendo games, and I noticed that the prices are starting to come down a little bit after all the craziness of the last few years.
Thank God.
So I was thinking about getting
it was getting ridiculous.
I know. I almost got a copy of Adventures of Lolo, because I don't have an actual physical copy of that game.
Do you remember how much it was?
It was like $9. It was a pretty good copy of it too. That's what I was saying.
Okay.
Everything was less than $10. I was like, finally, we're back to normal prices again.
It just makes me wonder, if because we're about to hit the 20-year mark of the Xbox 360. I wonder if we're going to see those prices skyrocket like what happened with the GameCube.
Probably. I mean, GameCube's been going up recently, so we'll see.
Yeah, and we're going to have to wait a while for those prices to go down.
Yeah, that and some Nintendo 64 stuff, too. It's like it just goes crazy for no reason all of a sudden, and then it kind of settles back where it's supposed to be.
To me, it always just depends on what the game is.
Yeah.
Like when you see like the gold Legend of Zelda cartridges being sold for like ridiculously high prices, I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
You're trying to fool people. Now, if you sell a gray one,
yeah,
then you're more accurate. But
yeah, those are those are the rare ones, not the gold ones.
I feel like I could walk outside my house and find a gold Zelda cartridge. That's how common they are.
$50 for it. I'm like, no, I'm not giving you $50 for that. I'm not happening.
Take off that zero, and then I'll pay it.
Yeah, as soon as you start seeing auctions for Super Mario 64 sealed going for like $1.5 million, and you know that there's like thousands of them out there, probably sitting in a warehouse that are in boxes still sealed, like something's up. Something smells fishy about all those auctions that went crazy.
It's like my late grandpa used to say, I smell a rat.
Yep.
In that situation.
Does it stink? It's probably a rat.
Yep.
But anyway, before we go into the review for tonight, Derek, do you want to shout out a few patrons before we go into it?
Absolutely. As always, we want to shout out our awesome patrons over at patreon.com/nerdcaveretro. We want to shout out Brian Piotrowski, Nick W., Eld the Zombie, Yup Fed, a.k.a. Knife, James, a.k.a. at Jimbo Jr. on our Discord, Raven, Danny House, Justin Mispel, John West, Daniel Salmon, Mr. B-Res Coffee himself, Mike Eveland, Tyler Watson, Axblade07, R. Mez Jackson, Carlos Longoria, a.k.a. I am the Rampage, Staff Sergeant Sketch, Gus and Penny, Matthew Salmon, Mr. Joey Image, and of course,
Mama Diamond.
Donna Diamond. Thank you all so much for your continued contributions and keeping the lights on for us here at the Nerd Cave Retro Podcast. For as little as $1 a month, I found $1 in change in my kitchen this morning, so I could be a patron. It would be weird because it's I co-host this show, but still, if I were a listener, I could just fork over $1 a month, and you get your own personal RSS feed that has no ads. If you just want to hear us talk continuously for however long the episode is, you get that for as little as $1 a month, and you get early access to our monthly bonus episodes, which for the most part includes a commentary track for an animated series or a full-length movie. But this month we did something a little different. We mentioned it earlier, but we Jason, Wally, and I basically spent 45 minutes pitching different games that could be turned into TV shows. And it was truly one of the most fun podcasts I've done in a long time.
Yeah, I had a blast doing that episode. I think it's something we're actually going to do more of instead of just doing commentary tracks every month. We'll maybe, every other month or every couple of months, we'll do something sort of like a roundtable discussion like that where we just talk about things like that, because those are just fun conversations to have.
Yeah, and it's conversations like that is, why I fell in love with podcasting, because it's like you're a fly on the wall listening to friends talk about something that you're passionate about.
Absolutely.
So you can go check that out. Head over to patreon.com/nerdcaveretro. For new patrons, be sure to send us your social media info, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, so we can give you a proper shout out.
And tonight, Derek is going to be talking about... And that's pretty much the only song in that game.
I was about to say, play that same song. Okay. Da, 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 da. But it is one of the most iconic theme songs in the history of cinema. Of course, that was the Indiana Jones theme, written by the greatest, and I will argue that with anybody, the greatest film composer in the history of movies, John Williams.
There's no arguing that. That is fact.
I had this conversation a couple of weeks ago. Whenever someone notable in the film industry passes away, like everybody, even if casual moviegoers have a certain level of mourning, the day that John Williams dies, the world is going to mourn.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Absolutely.
He is one of the most important people in the history of cinema.
How old is John Williams now? Let me look that up.
He's got to be in his 90s now.
How old is John Williams?
I'm going to guess 91.
You're close. He's 92.
I was a year off.
He just turned 92 in February.
Man. And he's still working. He's still, he's still composing, I think. Or I don't know if the Indiana Jones was going to be his swan song, but I don't know if he's officially retired.
I don't think he has. I know there's, he was talking about doing something. Wasn't he supposed to do some more Star Wars stuff here soon?
Maybe, because I know they're doing a new movie with Rey.
Yes.
So maybe he'll come back for that one.
Yeah,
but we'll see.
This Wikipedia on John Williams is like
it's incredible, man.
It just keeps scrolling and scrolling and scrolling.
Yep. So on the topic of John Williams and Indiana Jones, I'm going to be reviewing a game that I've honestly been really looking forward to playing ever since we talked about it for this month in video game history. Indiana Jones and His Desktop Adventures, which is a 1996 adventure video game, was made to run in a windowed form on the desktop to limit memory use and allow the player to perform other tasks. This was the first desktop adventures game and was followed by Star Wars Yoda Stories in 1997.
I think there's another game you need to be reviewing here soon.
I know. God, I'm going to be set for the rest of the year at this rate. So, first of all, I thought this game came out much earlier than 96. Like, if you were to just show me what the game looks like, I would have guessed 91 or 92.
Yeah, it actually looks really good.
Yeah, it has that look of an early 90s educational game like you would play in elementary school to learn about, different locations around the world. But you throw in Indiana Jones, and yet Last Crusade had come out, many years before this game came out. But Indy's still a popular name. Like, people know who Indiana Jones is. Mm-hmm. He's a very iconic film character. So I didn't really know what to expect when I started playing this game, because as I've mentioned, my experience with the point and click slash computer games is very limited. So I was legitimately curious to try this game out. The first thing I noticed was the theme song. And with the setting and everything, it takes place, of course, in the 1930s. I was excited to be back in the Indiana Jones world. Because while I'm not like a diehard indie fan, I think all of the movies, minus the one that we won't speak of that came out in the mid 2000s.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I blacked out for a second. My apologies to everybody. But yeah, I love being in that world. You know, it's classic cinema where you feel like you're going along on an adventure with Indiana Jones, and you could get lost in it very easily. In saying that, the way I actually played the game was really cool. I found a website that hosts old computer games, and it boots up like an old like Hewlett Packard from the 90s with the loading screen and the gray awesome. Tinted windows, and I'm like, this is awesome. Like you're in the full experience, like with the pixelated hourglass that pops up whenever you're waiting for the game to load. I'm like, man, this website really went all out. And so like it added to the experience, which I thought was great. Cool. So that's kind of where the good ends and my criticisms have to start. Because I'm not looking at this from a nostalgic standpoint, because I didn't grow up playing this game. How do I put this in a nice way? The game has not really aged well, in my opinion. I don't know if it was the website that I was using. I tend to think that it wasn't, because I also watched some gameplay of it. The movements are I put crude in my notes, but it's very jumpy. Like if you're watching a video and you see that like a few frames are skipped because it looks like the screen's buffering or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
That's how all the characters are, especially Indy. And I'm like, this is not good.
Yeah.
And it really does affect the way you play the game. And it's like a Legend of Zelda, an old school Legend of Zelda style, where it's a top-down view of Indy. You start in this little village, and you really kind of learn the basics of the game. You learn how to talk with people. There's a couple of essential weapons and items that you can find. But you have to look up how to control the game, because when I first started, I had no idea how to use the whip or any other kind of weapon. But what's cool is that on the screen, it has like the old options like file, window, and whatnot at the top in the old style of computer from the 90s. And the old help screen popped up with the controls and everything. So I'm like, okay, that's cool. So you have to kind of figure out for yourself the exact controls, because it just kind of throws you in.
So what's the name of the site again that you played this at?
Let me look it up real quick.
In case anybody out there wants to go try it out.
Let's see. It is. Come on, that's not it. Play Classic Games.
Okay.
Yeah, playclassic.games. It's got all kinds of old stuff on there that you could check out.
Ooh,
so
I think I just found a new site.
I want to go down a rabbit hole on this website here soon, because it's legit. It's really cool,
dude. The first thing that pops up, Oregon Trail.
Right?
That's gonna have to be our dual review here after next week.
Hey, I'm all for a dual review of Oregon Trail.
Let's do it.
Because I can tell some cool stories.
Let's go ahead and not next week, because I have my review coming up, but the week after, let's dual review Oregon Trail.
Okay.
I'm for it.
I'm totally down with that. Yeah, put that. Yeah, okay. So you're putting that in the notes so we don't forget.
Yes, I am.
Yeah. So anyway, back to Indy. it does a good job of capturing the Indiana Jones world, because you fight these random enemies like Indy does in the old movies. You've got the classic whip. You also have like knives you can use. You can find first aid kits to replenish your health. But something that really bugs me, worse than the what looks like frame rate dropping, the enemies can shoot or attack you diagonally, but you cannot do it to them.
That's awful.
Oh, I was so mad.
I hate that. You just telling me that makes me angry.
It's like that's just unfair. You know, like why?
Why would you do that?
I don't know. But the skipping that happens throughout the game, like it especially affects that, because you can get, shot like crazy, but you have to be like right in front of your enemy in order to use the whip, which I'm not a fan of.
Don't like that.
Yep. As Michael Scott would say, nope, don't like that. Now, one thing that is really cool, and I think this was actually ahead of its time, at least as far as my awareness goes, the plot of the game is randomly generated, meaning that you can play through the game once and then go through it again, and there's a completely different objective that you have to do. And I found a playlist on YouTube because I was curious about how many stories there are. And the playlist had up to 15, which I think is actually quite cool because it gives you a reason to play through it again.
Yeah.
Because you can play through a whole different objective. Like you can fight Nazis in one, and then you can discover treasure with another.
See, up until you telling me about this game, I always thought this was an educational game.
Yeah, I thought that too, but it's really just an Indiana Jones PC game.
Huh.
It just,
I don't know
it
why
has
I
the
thought
feel
that,
of it though.
I don't know why I thought that this wasn't just an educational game.
It has the feel of it though, to be fair. Because it really does seem like a game like an Oregon Trail or, others that you would have played in school at that time.
Yeah.
But it blew my mind, and I know we recently talked about it, but I really thought this game came out in the early 90s because that's what it looks like. By 96, we already had, the N64 at that time.
Yeah.
So 3D graphics were a thing, and other computer games were like that. So I was expecting it to be a little more advanced. It might be the right word to describe it.
Yeah, because, by this point, we're already on to doing stuff like The Seventh Guest and Myst, things like that. And, this kind of has that, like, I'm looking at at some of the screenshots, and, like, the UI of it kind of looks almost like Shadowgate style. It looks like Shadowgate with color. Like everything's kind of colorful.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it does. Let's see. What are some other things about it? Okay, so, each scenario is randomly generated by selecting each element, such as the item Indiana Jones must collect at each stage of the adventure from a set of possibilities. After winning, the player can continue to explore the setting. If this game didn't have the lagging issue, I would totally want to play through all the different objectives. It's just that there's some things about it that I don't want to say it's broken, but it was kind of frustrating to play because of just the sheer disadvantage you have when fighting a room full of enemies.
Yeah, especially if you can't shoot diagonally. Like, what kind of crap is that?
Yeah, I don't know what they were thinking. Somebody, I think, at LucasArts was having a bad day, and they're like, you know what? We're going to take this feature out.
And, LucasArts always made great games, but I don't know, it kind of seems like maybe this one maybe left a few life improvement.
They didn't
life improvement things out of it,
Yeah, Yeah, they left some ideas on the table.
Yeah.
But I will say, we've been saying this a lot, I think, with the games we've been reviewing. But especially after getting into more mobile games, if you were to tweak this, I think this could work great as a mobile game. One that, we've said this before, if you're sitting at the doctor's office or you're waiting to get your oil changed or, some other mechanic work, this would be a great game to just pull out on your phone and play for like an hour.
Yeah.
Or even less than that. Like, I think it would be a great time killer type of game. But it would have to be tweaked a lot. You fix the controls and you fix the lagging issues, I think you've got a pretty decent game here.
Yeah.
There is a good game in this. It just has some flaws that I'm not particularly a fan of.
Well, luckily we're going to get a whole new updated Indiana Jones game on the Xbox this year, so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I would be too if I had an Xbox. Maybe eventually I'll get one though.
So do you think
as far as
do you think this game could be remade as not just like a big full-on game, but this seems like it would be kind of like a little fun, like you said, like a fun little mobile game or something that they could really ramp it up a little bit and do some life improvement changes to it and make it a fun little game.
I think so. Maybe not too extensively, but I think if you remake it, people are going to be intrigued because of the Indiana Jones name.
Yeah.
But you're going to have to put a good product out there because, with some of the reception of the game, Trent Ward of GameSpot reviewed the game as having low quality visuals and audio, but being possibly useful for passing time. Billboard magazine mentioned the game's randomly generated environment and its target audience of gamers on the go and deemed it an unambitious title that will rope you in.
So they hate the game, but they're saying it's addictive, but they hate it. Like, how does that work?
Like, it's fun playing it, but it's terrible. So tell me how that makes sense.
What?
It's like Star Wars fans that continue to watch the movies, but they're like, this sucks. I hate it. Then don't watch it.
Yeah. I hate this. It's terrible. It's woke, but I'm still going to watch it next week.
But I'll take the time to post on social media about it.
I'm going to hate watch every single episode.
What a miserable existence. A Next Generation reviewer noted that the randomly generated scenarios are essentially repetitive and complained at the fact that the player character cannot shoot diagonally, but enemies can. Well, yeah, you're speaking my language there, my friend.
I mean, how do you let something like that go by? That bothers me. That just bothers me.
It bothers me, yeah, whenever... It bothers me in movies, too, but also especially in games. When you try to do all this cool stuff, but you forget the basics.
Mm-hmm.
You build the foundation, and then you build around it. It's not that hard.
I mean, it's like, what, one line of code that's going to allow him to shoot diagonally? It's not that hard.
No, it's really not. I don't understand it.
It pains me.
But as some of the review scores, Computer Gaming World gave it 1 out of 5 stars.
Yeesh. They also...
GameSpot...
did you read this where they said they declared it the 15th worst computer game ever released? Wow.
Oh, yeah. So Charles Ardai of Computer Gaming World wrote, for a genius, George Lucas sure has a lot of bad ideas. I mean, we've been saying that for years.
Yeah.
But I still love Uncle George. I mean, he gave us, in my opinion, the greatest movie franchise of all time. But yeah, he's had some stinkers. Some time ago, someone from his computer game division must have come to him and said, hey, let's put out a really simple, randomly generated RPG-style adventure game, stick a whip in the hand of the main character, use the Indiana Jones name, and make it look really ugly. And Lucas must have said, sounds good to me.
He would say it. Oh, sounds good to me. Yeah, sounds great. Let's do it.
Yeah, well, that sounds great. Oh, and by the way, Harrison, faster and more intense.
Yeah. I like how they said
Oh, you cut out again.
Yeah, they said the theme music featured in the game. Fans may enjoy the theme music, but concluded that the game was embarrassingly retro. And this is
that should be our new podcast name. Embarrassingly retro.
I'm for it.
I want somebody to write that as a review. Still rate us 5 stars, but say embarrassingly retro.
Embarrassingly retro. If anybody does that, goes and writes us a review and names the review, gives us 5 stars and calls it embarrassingly retro, I will send you a prize in the mail.
Oh, that needs to go on one of our shirts.
Oh, yeah. Let me write that down before I forget.
Yeah. That is a great tagline. Yeah, he says the game was embarrassingly retro with its overly simplistic gameplay, crude visuals and sound, and ludicrous ethnic stereotypes.
Wow. I mean, that's kind of what Indiana Jones is.
Yeah, clearly this person did not watch a single Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah, I mean, that's what he is. That's what the whole thing is.
Yeah. Not saying it's right, but it's what it is.
Yeah, it's what it is. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know.
Some other scores, GameSpot gave it a 5.8 out of 10. PC Games gave it a C-. PC Zone an 8 out of 10, so there's a decent one. And Mac User 3 out of 5 stars. I'm not going to give it an extremely low score because I really don't think it's... I won't say it's unplayable, but it's close. I will say because it's fun to be in the Indiana Jones universe. You've got some, you've got ways to replay it because of all the different outcomes. I would give it, I think a 6 is too high. I'm going to give it a 4.5.
Nah.
It's not great, but it's not Fester's Quest bad.
It might be something worth checking out, but it's probably not good.
If you're a fan of Indiana Jones, it's worth checking out. If you're not, or if you're just like a retro gamer that's discovering new games, I'd probably give it a pass, to be honest.
Yeah, well...
But that's my thoughts on Indiana Jones and his desktop adventures.
Well, before I do my next review, I'm actually going to put it to you, Derek. You're going to be the tiebreaker here. On Patreon, I put up a poll the other day I put up 3 games for me to review for next week, but 2 of them came in tied. So you're going to be the tiebreaker here, Derek. You ready?
Okay. Yeah.
We have Mad Max for the NES, which I kind of would like to do because of Furiosa coming out soon. Or I could torture myself with Silver Surfer for the NES.
Oh, no question, Mad Max.
All right, sounds good. I'll do Mad Max.
I love those movies. I'm even a defender of Beyond Thunderdome. I know a lot of people don't like that movie, but
I like it.
I enjoy it. And like you said, Furiosa's coming out. So I say Mad Max easily.
All right. Because I've never played it. I played a little bit of it, but maybe like 30 seconds of it when I got it not too long ago. And I do love the Mad Max game that came out for the PS. Was it the PS4? Yeah, it was PS4 it came out for.
I think so.
That game's so good. If you've never played it, go play it. It's if you like Mad Max and you love that world, go play that game. It's just completely worth it. So I'm kind of interested.
I want to watch Fury Road again.
I know, that movie's so good. I can't wait for Furiosa. That movie's going to be so good.
Yeah, it looks great. It proves that George Miller is one of the most, like, not just the best directors, but one of the most badass directors.
And he's like 92 too, I think.
Yeah, he's up there in age, and he's out in the desert shooting all this stuff practically. Like, the guy's insane.
Let me look up real quick. I think he's in his 90s. Oh, no, he's 79. I thought he was in his 90s.
Okay, I was thinking he was in, like, his early to mid-80s.
No, he was born March 3rd, 1945. But still, 79 years old, out in the desert, rocking it, making the best action movies that have ever been made. Dude's killing it.
I mean, he made The Road Warrior, which revolutionized that genre, and then Fury Road, which is just, it's a masterpiece of the genre.
You know, towards the end of the movie, I think it's towards the end of the movie, and I saw this not too long ago on some trivia, and there was a YouTube video. The end of Road Warrior, where the one guy on a motorcycle hits the car and goes flying. He like does a flip in the air. That was an accident, and the guy broke like both of his legs doing that stunt, and that's what you see in the movie. That's why it looks so real and awful, because it was real and awful.
Oh, that's going to hurt me even more to go back and watch that.
Go back and watch that movie, and when you'll know the scene I'm talking about. The dude breaks both of his legs.
So I read this too. This was kind of on topic, but the original Mummy movie with Brendan Fraser came on TV last night. And I went, on the IMDb and was looking up different trivia. You know the scene where they try to hang him? And he drops down, but his neck doesn't break. He did that stunt legitimately and almost died because of it.
Same thing happened on Back to the Future 3 when Marty McFly is hanging, when he's hanging and he's being dragged through town, and they hang him up in front of the clock tower. I think his harness had broken or something like that, so he was hanging for real, and he was choking to death.
That's so scary.
The things people do to make movies, especially back in the day. Yeah, keep that in mind next time you see Road Warrior. Just know that guy was severely injured, and that's the take that's in the movie.
Yeah. Ugh, that's rough.
But next week, Mad Max, and then after that, Oregon Trail. So we got our next 2 weeks covered here at the Nerd Cave Retro Show.
You just gave me an extra week of Paper Mario.
Yeah. So, Derek, what's going on with I know you got some changes coming to the Derek Diamond Experience.
Yeah, I actually put out a really good episode today with 3 fellow filmmakers based out of Detroit, Michigan. They and I think you would actually enjoy this movie once it comes out, because it's a movie called Band on the Run. It's an indie comedy / like a buddy road trip where it's these kids are traveling with their dad to Austin, Texas for South by Southwest.
Oh, that's cool.
So the trailer looks really good. I talked with Jeff Hupp, the director, and his co-directors Brian Cusick and Merritt Fritchie. And kind of like what we were saying earlier about why I fell in love with podcasting, it was conversations like this, because we spent 45 minutes talking about one movie, and which is a rarity on my show, because I like to kind of keep the conversation, kind of flowing with some variety, but everything from like funny stories to how the movie was made, it's all there. Really, really fun chat. But yeah, after 400 episodes of the Derek Diamond Experience, I'm going to be rebranding and rechanging the name to Real Wisdom. And it's going to focus a little bit more on doing a deep dive on different filmmaking topics. So I'll release more information as far as like when those changes will become official. I have an idea of what I want the first couple of shows to be. It'll just be, scheduling it and all that. So, but until then, you can check out all the episodes at linktree.com/DDiamondPodcast.
Awesome. And I'll be listening to that episode tomorrow, so I'll let you know as soon as I'm done with it. For the Open Micers podcast, we've had some really great episodes over the last few months. And last week we had for this week's show, we had comedian Patrick Sisk from, he's an Orlando comedian. Dude's hilarious. Please go check that episode out at Open Micers on Twitter and Instagram. OpenMicers.com is the website. And I think that's everything. Is that everything before we go?
I think so.
Well, let's get out the door. If you want to email us at nerdcaveretro@gmail.com. Nerdcaveretro.com is our link tree. That'll take you to all of our socials, our Patreon, and especially our merch shop. You could go to that, going to ncrmerch.com, and you can get t-shirts, hats, stickers, magnets, bags, mugs, bugs, brags, whatever you need.
Buckets.
Buckets over there at our merch shop, which we might have that embarrassingly retro shirt up here pretty soon. But follow us on all social media at Nerd Cave Retro, at JFunktastic, at Derek_Diamond, and of course, please leave us a review and or a 5-star rating on all podcasting platforms. So Derek, please tell them what it's all about.
Give them hell, Indiana Jones.
No time for love, Dr. Jones.
Oh, a fellow chucker, eh?
All right, and that's an episode. I think there's something wrong with Loopback. It's got to be, because things were starting to, like... Check 1, 2, 3. There it goes. Check.
There you
check,
go.
Check. I don't understand. I don't know what is happening. Maybe I might need to uninstall and reinstall it. I don't know. Either that or I don't know.
Maybe.
Well, let's say goodbye.
And you said there was no update?
No, there's no update or anything. But thank you all for watching on YouTube, and we will see you guys next week.